Hey guys, this is Larry. I want to tell you about a story about what is perhaps one of the least important things in hi-fi, how it in the end actually makes a big difference, and that most of us in hi-fi ignore this. So I'm sorry about the mess on the floor, but this is what I want to talk about. Terminals. Speaker terminals and plugs, that they actually make a difference. This is a gold CMC plug. This is an Audio Note silver plug. There is on this piece of gear, one of the most reactive pieces of gear in this world, not a 5 or 10 or 15% difference from this one, this cheaper CMC gold terminal, to this more expensive Audio Note silver terminal. There is more like a difference of around 30%. Now that in now that is just an incredibly, almost stupendous difference in hi-fi that you almost never ever experience. And I want to tell you guys about a story. Okay, a really interesting story. So hang on. Okay, I'm going to go over to my PC and I want to show you this. This was what was on originally when my friend had it made. Okay, look at the price. Okay, I had it changed from this sound, which is a very retro sound. Okay, it's a very colored, retro, limited sound, very safe sound, boosted sound. And then we went over to this. Not much more different in terms of price, but this, guys, made one of the biggest differences I have ever heard in my system. And I just want to say that because we chose the right materials for the right design, we made a statistical bet that this would make a difference in sound, and I was wrong. It didn't make a difference in sound. It made a giant difference in sound, okay? So let me tell you guys a story. But before I do that, quickly, I just wanna say what it did in terms of sound. Going from this to this here made the sound a lot more clear, a lot more focused, a lot more genuine, and the bass was not this puffed up, old-fashioned 300B type of bass that most amplifiers have nowadays. It was just a lot more layered, a lot more interesting. There was a lot more variety and nuance in the sound, okay? So this was one of the luckiest upgrades you could ever make, okay? You should not expect to get the results that I did, but I did like 1,000 types of results, 1,000 types of experiments like this throughout the years. And that is why I got lucky. You know, I used a lot of time and a lot of money on this, and that is why I got lucky. Okay, I'm not saying that you should, in general, try to do these types of things. I'm just saying sometimes you get lucky, and this is one of the few times that I got really lucky. Okay, so let me tell you about a story. Here, I wrote this document. Okay, you can all read this. I think I'll just read it aloud in a moment, but it's basically what I want to say with this video is that everything makes some difference to the sound. And yes, plugs are maybe some of the smallest things that we can hear. I agree. A lot of people out there don't even believe in those things, okay? But all you today see in this video, I once heard tested on one Macintosh amp. And just to reveal what that amp was, it was a Macintosh MA 7000 amp. Okay. You can read the rest, guys. Okay. You can read the rest. I won't bore you with the details here, but just want to say that I did this test on Macintosh, YBA, Pass Labs, Mark Levinson, and a couple of Audio Note amps. I did this test. Okay. I know for a fact that these results are solid, and nobody on the internet has done this, okay? As far as I can see. So this is what I want to talk to you guys about, okay? I have tested going from these terminals to, these terminals here and these terminals here to all the way up to these terminals here on the same app, meaning we have one, then we have two. That's a totally different type, totally different generation of plugs. Then the one that I owned before, the Macintosh MA6900, these plugs sound actually very different. These plugs, again, very different. Apparently they're CMC plugs. Only today I realized that. Then these plugs, and then these plugs. All of these plugs have a grade of difference in sound, okay? And in regards to Macintosh, it only did like a 5% difference, so not a big difference, okay? I'm not saying it's night and day difference, you have to do this. That's not what I'm saying. But what I want to say is that the fact that Macintosh went from this type of old design to, in the end, this here is not just for looks, okay? It has a lot to do with how Macintosh sounds nowadays, okay? All the brands in hi-fi have basically done this. That they've gone from these older, weaker connections to what basically is something similar to this. Past Labs has done it. YBA have to some degree done it. Audio Note, so many manufacturers out there have done this, and this is not to only justify the prices that are insane nowadays. It's not just for that, okay? And I know that it's a very small difference in regards to the sound that has only changed gradually throughout the years. I know that. But what I want to tell you is that this is a sort of game that we play in hi-fi, where there are two different types, distinctly different types of sound here. There's the Macintosh type of design with the more Class D type of sound. I know it's AB watts in general, but that's my interpretation of it, okay? Just to make it easier to digest. And then there's the Audio Note approach, which is messing a hell of a lot more with the distortion and changing the surface part of the detail a hell of a lot more, okay? And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you that there is a difference in sound, and you have to decide if you want to play this game or if you want to instead just use the standard parts that are there and play this more suppressor coupled type of sound that Macintosh, Past Labs, AudioFlight, all the newer brands tend to do. I've noticed throughout the years that the art of the sound, let me take you to the one that I owned here, okay? Around this time here, the midpoint in this journey here, going from over here to over here, okay? That's about the midpoint. This was the midpoint destination. I had this amp at some time. And I can tell you that this here is a lot of coloration in sound. These terminals, a lot of coloration. And that this here was some of the worst terminals I had ever heard. Okay? And that this amp here actually had a lot more of goodies left in it. So that if you took the terminals from this later model and put them over to this 6300 model, you would get a sound that is just not a hell of a lot better, but you would notice that it's more neutral, more solid in sound, and just more convincing in sound. It isn't like a night in difference, like, wow, oh my God. But I'm saying that in order to create a certain voicing, they actually had to downgrade the sound on this Macintosh design. So this is created with the intention to hit a certain voicing. That is why they have the terminals here. This also has a certain voicing. Okay, not really good terminals, actually really, really bad. I was really surprised that they went with these speaker terminals. But then just going from the 6900 model, okay, to the 7000 model here, which I always wanted but never could really get a hold of. Huge difference. Huge difference in terms of just the sound quality of the terminals. Huge difference. Like I've almost never heard such a big difference going from one model to another in a Macintosh design. Okay, this is one of the reasons why this sound was so different from this sound. One of the reasons, not one of the main reasons. Okay, this is a huge step history-wise, going from these terminals around 2008, I think this was produced, to around 2010, where this one was produced, the MA 7000. This made a huge difference. History changed a lot here. And not just that, when we went from the 7000 model to the 8000 model, again, this was a huge change, okay? Sound wasn't dramatically different. It was noticeably different. But because it was still the same design at its very core, you didn't, as a customer, notice that there was a dramatic difference, but there was a substantial difference. And here, historically, this is basically the first amp for Macintosh to have a built-in DAC. So not only did they have a built-in DAC and the new terminals and some alteration to the design inside and going with different signal terminals, this was a huge turning point for Macintosh. So 3 different sounds going from this generation to this generation to this generation here. Okay, that's one of the biggest things that have changed in the history of Macintosh amplifiers, even though it's basically the same design. And so what I'm trying to say is that even on Macintosh, that is one of the least reactive brands out there. And like I wrote, you can either choose this as a good thing or a bad thing, that it's not so reactive. Okay, you can either say that, oh, it's not reactive, that's because there's not much noise to play with. Yeah, okay, I get that, but then look at what I wrote here. Okay, it's both a good thing and a bad thing. So I just want to say that I did these changes in sound, okay, and it made a difference. And I just want to say that we have to have respect for this thing that we don't know really anything about. Have you done these tests? No, I did these tests. I tested these terminals here, okay, on a lot of different amps. I tested these terminals here from a lot of different amps. And this one. And this one. And this one. And this one, okay? And I'm just saying that we have to not judge a book by its cover and think that everything is either about what's inside the gear or it's about the outside because they're so cool and shiny and stuff like that. Okay, I'm saying that everything makes a difference, and that it's all about you as a customer, the type of experience that you want. And I wanted to show you guys this because this made a huge difference for me, going from CMC, normal terminals that most 300B amps have. Hegel gear has this. Lungdorf even uses this on their gear, to stuff like this. Okay, if you put this stuff here on Macintosh type of gear, you would hear the illusion of what Macintosh has created, the voicing that they have created, the structure of all the different what you call the hierarchy of the of all the models. You would hear it sort of breaking apart, and everything that I've shown you here would lose its relevance. You would hear a sound that would fall apart. It would be a form of truth that you would not want to hear, unless you went for this here and try to incorporate it into here. That would be probably the best type of incorporation of parts of all the amps. Okay, you would be able to get away with that a hell of a lot more. But I'm saying that what I'm saying is that hi-fi is a sort of illusion where everything matters and to some degree everything doesn't matter at the same time. It's two realities that exist at the same time. And we have to appreciate this and not use it as an excuse for going to war with each other, saying that, oh, your brand is better than my brand, and so and so and so. No, we are messing with science and stuff that's technical together with stuff like this that is art. Okay, it's a balance that we have to make. It's a statistical approach that we have to take, where you do, whenever you test something in hi-fi, you do what I did in this type of way. This here is history in the making. This here is a deep, deep, deep truth about hi-fi, how manufacturers shape their own sound depending on what type of religion they're in. Okay, I find this very, very, very enlightening and explaining a lot about our sound. So let me just end it by saying, sorry about the mess in my room. By the way, for you guys, you trolls out there that say like, oh, how can you have all this on the floor? This is like Jay's Audio Lab, where I have like a couple of thousand experiments going on per year. So I don't have time to put things on a piece of furniture where all my beta test cables will drag everything down. I don't do things for show. I'm not a clown putting on a demonstration for you guys who will, do things in the most normal way so you feel comfortable. I'm doing this to document history so we don't lose the best parts of our sound. Okay, I'm here to put a light on the things that nobody talks about. Okay, so let's do that quickly. On this particular amp, this is gold CMC signal. This is Audio Notes silver plug. Basically the best of the bottom class, basically perhaps the best of the top class. You could argue that VBT possibly is better or some other brand, whatever. This is just a random example, and I'm saying that on this type of design, that is a fantastic experiment to do. This totally changed the sound at its core. Everything got better. Everything. That's both a good and a bad thing. It shows you that it's a very noisy thing, it's a very reactive thing, and that small things like this make a huge difference. This is one of the biggest different amps in the world. It's hardwired. My friend made it for me. It's even more reactive than audio note gear. Okay, there's no boards in this at all. Okay, I can hear like 20 different levels of tubes in this. This can either be a nightmare for you if you don't know how to manipulate sound, or you can use it to your advantage. This is like one of the highest level games you can play in terms of just changing sound and exploring sound. So I recommend for so many people out there to at least try some form of 300B 2A3 low watt tube amp and do stuff like this on different levels, just to explore the different colors, the different tastes, the different sounds, how everything makes a difference in audio. Good. That is out of the way now. Going over to Denon, which is transistor, which is a totally different type of wattage, totally different type of design. This is Japanese. We are going over to a sound that is a lot more conservative, a lot more solid, a lot more not changing its core personality. This is a very Japanese type of thing where you're going, this is me. I won't budge. This is my sound. I won't do anything more than what is slightly artful, and I won't change me at my very core. Okay, this is Japanese philosophy by itself. This thing here. Okay, and if you go at the back, what will you find? You will find basic solid connections. Okay, I'm showing you this to sort of make a point that this here, these type of connections, these are very basic. And pretty much everybody from this time period around Japan, they were using these types of terminals, okay? Not the very best terminals in the world, but what's really fascinating about these terminals is that, because I've heard them on other pieces of gear, is that they're damn straight neutral in sound, okay? That can either be a good thing or a bad thing. And they're neutral in a way that is very raw, okay? So this is one of the reasons why this particular amp, one of the many reasons why it has the voicing that it has. That it doesn't have the juiciness of this. If I put this on there and these here on that, I can tell you without even having done the experiment, because I've done it on so much other gear, I can tell you that you would get more coloration, deep coloration, not superficial, but deep. This is superficial, this is deep coloration. You would get a more juicy sound. You would get more frequency, and basically you would get what is more of an audio note type of sound, where it's more about adventure, exploring something, feelings. These things, even though they are so fantastically good, it's still a bit of a curse on some gears, on some pieces of gear, because this is a form of dramatization of noise. So why is it that manufacturers use these things, which are a lot more limited in sound? I can tell you why. Noise. They want to create a sound, a voicing that is a lot more stable, a lot more its own identifiable type of sound that doesn't vary, where it's just about coupling and about being a certain type of neutral. Okay? So even though these are a hell of a lot better, they open up a whole other world of problems, of listening to noise. Okay? So this is a lot more reactive, juicy, natural, adventurous type of sound, but only if you use it on the right gear. On the wrong gear, I've tried doing this a couple of times, and it can make your life a living nightmare. So that is why a lot of manufacturers save using these parts, and they'd rather use something like that, which is a bit lower in class, but it puts the sound in place and goes like solid. That's my sound. Denon, finished. Okay. Same story with Luxman. They use these types of connections, basically the same type of connection, and that's one of the reasons why Luxman, which also is Japanese, and Denon, which is Japanese, it's one of the reasons why they have a similar sound, a similar voicing, a similar characteristic. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So look, terminals, basically the same terminals. This is the Denon. This is the Luxman. Basically the same terminals. Now here, for some reason, I don't know why, they used a slightly different version here and here. Perhaps that's some significance due to the type of signal. Could be. But I just want to say that you can't judge a book by its cover. All of these decisions are made with an intention. And it's about, for each of these manufacturers, which are different, Denon, Luxman, Audionote, Techniques, what have they done? Similar? It's similar. Different color coordinations, but basically similar. It's the similar metal. So again, Japanese. And this is one of the reasons why I want to show you this, guys, because this is one of the reasons why Japanese and Japanese gear has this sort of raw, basic, solid, conservative sound because of those terminals. This is one of the reasons why. And this is why the Audionote thing, again, with these terminals, and you can't really see them down there, but it's silver, okay? This is why they have that voicing. These are my monoblocks. I had them upgraded from CMC to an even bigger model. Was this a good decision? Yes and no. This is sort of one of my failed experiments in hi-fi. So, what did it change on this gear? Well, this gear wasn't really ready for that type of sound, that more revealing sound. This sort of half broke the sound, meaning that on the surface, the voicing was better. There was more clarity, there was more focus, but I'm now getting a truth where I can hear things that have been done in the design that aren't optimal, okay? So in this case, to satisfy my curiosity, where I used a hell of a lot of money, I found out in this case that the design simply was not good enough to use these parts. And in a way, I kind of regret having upgraded the lower end parts. The lower end parts was a complement to this sound. I wanted to pull more of its potential out of it, and I did that in a way, but I also, to some degree, broke the sound so that I just got more truth, a form of truth that just wasn't as pleasant to take in as the previous, more flawed, low quality parts that were on it, you know. And what I'm saying is that this is why Macintosh, Lyngdorf, and all those other brands around that area, they use these CMC gold type of plugs that are lower quality. It's to sort of suppress and voice a certain sound in a certain way where it gives you the feeling that there's more to come. And with these types of designs, you just don't want to challenge that. You want to leave it original. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you guys that. I want to tell you guys that story of something really fascinating. And while I've got you guys here, just to make this even more weird, can you see this? This is Oye's original plugs. These are Krell power plugs, okay? Those Oye, I tried them on these cables, some of the best cables in the world, power cables. And let me tell you something. Even on one of the best power cables on the world, it was a failure of experiment. I did this about a week ago. And what's really interesting to me, what I got to learn from that experience was, perhaps I should make another video about it so it doesn't get too long, but the really fascinating thing about that experience was that I got to see why it failed. Okay, and this was really fascinating. With these plugs here, the poles inside that go into the plugs, they basically go 2.5 times deeper into the plugs, meaning that the contact is much more like this, where on the Oye plugs, even though they are better plugs, have better materials, and in a way did certain parts of the sound a lot better, the contact was more like this instead of this. That here, my friend, is a huge difference in terms of sound. That is one of the secrets to why some plugs that are worse actually get to sound better than some of those that are more expensive and better quality. That's one of the secrets. That's one of the secrets in hi-fi. The negotiation of the signal, the quality of the contacts. This is one of the reasons why I've been struggling so many years putting Oye plugs on certain cables. Not figuring out how until I got this number, I don't know, 1,000 cable and changed the plug on it. Only then did it dawn on me that the type of connection that is done internally only grabs on like barely with the Oye plugs. While with these lower quality, more basic type of metal plugs that are a lot more boring to listen to, a lot more simple in sound, but hey, they grab onto to the cable a hell of a lot better, making the sound a lot more solid, a lot more with a black background. And this is one of the secrets in hi-fi that we don't ever talk about, because we always talk about, does it work, doesn't it work, religion war this, religion war that. This is one of the reasons why sound can change so much when you're testing one plug to another one, because you haven't tested this thing properly. You haven't realized that doing all these tests, there is a variable that is so gigantically different that is affecting the tests. I just found that really interesting. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this long video. Sorry about that. Bye.